It is DEI Day. Well, for me personally, it is. Good morning, 6:05. It is great to have you here on KCMO. Thank you for the old civility bell there, Mark Van Sickle. You're giving me a taste of what it's going to sound like tonight at 6 p.m. on stage at Rockhurst University, where I will be partaking in what is being called diversity, equity, inclusion, and controversy. This will be on Rockhurst, at Rockhurst, and it will run from 6 until 7:30 tonight. The doors will open at 5:30. So if you'd like to be there for me, show me a little support, show me a little love. I know, Mark's all tied up with the kids, and John would show up. He doesn't know what to wear, though, so it's just how it goes.
I've got basketball practice tonight.
Oh, yeah, the old I've got fifth grade basketball practice. What's your excuse,
I have something
John?
to wear, but there's photographic evidence from the Guy Benson event, so I'm going to have to rotate something else in.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, if you want to join me tonight, I will be there. As I said when I was first asked to do this by this organization here, American Public Square, they're good people that run the organization. It's not that I don't trust them. I do trust them. It's more so about the fact that I don't know what I'm walking into. I just know that I will be the only voice that thinks DEI is a total grift and a scam. I know that much. My guess is there will be a couple of big fans of this. My guess is there will be one or two that maybe try to ride the fence. But as far as I'm concerned, diversity, equity, and inclusion is one big grift that has made a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but a small percentage of people very wealthy. It's given them a purpose in life, and it's done a lot of damage to the social fabric across the United States of America. So that's what I'm going in tonight to say. And yeah, I may get hit with the old civility bell, which I got hit with. What was that? It was over 2 years ago now that the organization had me out there to talk about reparations in Kansas City. And they allowed anybody in the audience to hit what they dubbed a civility bell if they disagreed with somebody on the panel. And guess who got civility belled the most? Take a wild guess who got civility belled the most that night.
Talk about a bombshell.
Yeah, Jack Cashel came in number 2 on the civility bell. I was number 1, but we had quite a night. So if you want to join me out at Rockhurst, I'll be there. I think you can just show up as I understand it, and we'll see how the night goes and what the night brings, and bring back a full report tomorrow morning, assuming I show up here tomorrow morning, assuming I can get out of there in one piece tonight from Rockhurst. I think it'll be okay, but you never know. We'll have to see how it goes. It's me and a bunch of professors from all over the country, so that should be great. Can't wait. In the meantime, obviously, the world is following this tragedy in Charlotte. And if you haven't seen the story, this is one that now is on the president's radar. This is one that has gone viral all over the country. After a man, this was a few weeks ago. It wasn't something that happened over the weekend, but the video just came out here in the last couple of days. But what you see is a 34-year-old man named DeCarlos Brown standing up behind a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee. Her name is Aranya Zarutska. And the clip shows Brown standing up behind her on a light rail and then stabbing her with a pocket knife. Brown has now been charged with first-degree murder. And while the video is not something that is being shown, what you're seeing is pictures from the security cameras on the light rail moments before the tragedy took place. Now, all I keep coming back to the conclusion of is, you know what's coming, right? There is going to be a push in this country in the years to come to get rid of cameras in public spaces and body cameras on cops. I guarantee you this is coming. Because suddenly the body camera and the surveillance camera has become a very inconvenient truth, especially over the last few years. As we've seen body cameras ramp up for law enforcement in the wake of George Floyd, including here in Kansas City, suddenly this has become a real inconvenient truth for too many. And I think that it's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in one incident, but you are going to see a push from many people, largely on the left, who are going to look at some of these situations and say, gosh, this is not good for our narrative. We got to get cameras out of these places. We can't have these body cameras on anymore because suddenly our narrative is getting blown up. We can't have these surveillance cameras on Charlotte light rails. Our narrative's getting blown up. There will be a push, and it might sound ridiculous to you right now. How are they going to possibly do this? Oh, they'll do it for some nonsensical reasons around community safety and public security and making sure that people aren't being photographed or filmed in places they don't know they're being photographed or filmed. They'll find some reason to twist themselves into a pretzel to justify getting these cameras out of these public spaces. It's why I know that was actually a popular thing on the right, and it is still a popular thing for some people on the right. Like red light cameras, and many of you don't want cameras in public spaces. I've always disagreed with that. I've always thought, you know what, if you're out in public, if you're out and about, and you know what, we have red light cameras that help us track potential criminals. If we have cameras on public transit, that is a good thing. We should want that. We should want full transparency. And I know there's always been this big brother mentality for some people on the right when it comes to cameras in public places. I've never felt that way. Because what it does is it brings you the truth in, God forbid, tragic situations like what happened in Charlotte. Body cameras give you the entire story instead of our law enforcement officers getting railroaded by little snippets and clips that people take on their cell phones. And then what happens? The media ends up driving this thing into basically their preferred narrative. Think about one of the racial stories in recent years that garnered the most attention in this country. It was right here in Kansas City. It was the Ralph Yarl, Andrew Lester shooting. The story goes, a couple of years back up in the Northland, Ralph Yarl, a young black boy, shows up at the wrong house in the Northland to pick up his brother. Andrew Lester is an 80-something-year-old old man, single, and he gets flustered. He shows up to the front door. He claims that Yarl is trying to break into his house, and he shoots through the door and hits Ralph Yarl. Ralph Yarl survives, thank goodness, but this became a major story around the world, and it was simply because of the race of each person. Andrew Lester was an old white man. Ralph Yarl was a young black boy. The media sadly loves stories like that because it fits their preferred narrative, and they made it a global story. And Ralph Yarl raised millions of dollars on his GoFundMe off of that story, or his family did, whoever. He was a minor, is a minor. And the biggest thing about that story is that no one really knows what happened. There's no video. You can't really corroborate. It's he said, he said. So in a he said situation, what do you take out of that? Well, the media then allows itself to basically use the story to fit its preferred narrative. We need more cameras, not less cameras. We need more of this, not ways to figure out how to make sure that we can't see things happening on mass transit. We can't see things happening with cops. We need to see that because oftentimes, the truth does not fit their preferred narrative. And they're starting to realize that the hard way. And this Charlotte light rail story is just their latest example. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. We'll get to your calls here coming up at 6:15 on a Tuesday. Bill O'Reilly is going to be on the show at 8 this morning. Do not miss the big guy. He's got the new book out. We got a lot to dive into with Bill O'Reilly, 8:05 here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. But coming up next, we'll get to you. Plus, did you see who's getting accused? A local politician has been accused of mistreatment by multiple women. We have the details next. Well done on the text line at 6:20 this morning. Just talking about this before the break, this viral tragedy out of Charlotte that is making all the rounds and getting a tremendous amount of attention. The president has now chimed in on this story as well. He's aware of it after a 34-year-old man stabbed a 23-year-old woman to death on a light rail in Charlotte. And it's bringing up all the conversations around the racial components. He's black, she's white, and that's obviously taking on its own life. But for me, I'm looking ahead, and I'm seeing a world where these body cameras on police officers, these cameras that are out in public everywhere you go, they are suddenly becoming a very inconvenient part of the narrative that many people pushed on this country for decades. And I see a world that's not too far off where there was a push from many people to say, we can't have these cameras out in public places. This is not fair to the privacy and security of folks as they're out and about. Why? Because they don't like the truth that is coming out of some of these public places via body cameras, via security cameras, via red light cameras. They don't like it one bit. Steven's in KCK. What's up, Steve?
Yeah, P, good take on this. I really hadn't thought about this before, but I do know that the red light cameras started going away when the local council person gets caught with their mistress. You know, they found the budget start going down. That's how this usually goes. The budget starts to disappear. I would like to see a law getting these video camera footages out quicker. That's my take out of this. I don't want these inner city people in Charlotte, the urban core, delaying the footage and dropping it on the first weekend of NFL, where nobody heard about this until Monday. It took 3 or 4 days for this to percolate. They were hoping to bury it, and now they haven't. Now it's become a national crisis because of the component of the guy being schizophrenic, being arrested 14 times, brutalizing his sister. His own mother kicked him out of the house. The guy's a monster, and we need this right. We need to shame these people right away and not bury it in the middle, when no one is paying attention. The good news, though, Steve, is that we do have a world now, and good call, where social media will basically not allow this stuff to be buried. If it comes out on social media, you're right. I mean, this happened back on August 22nd in Charlotte, North Carolina. And here we are on September 9th, and it's starting to become a big story. And yes, they tried to bury it during the opening weekend of the NFL. Social media won't allow that to happen. There's a lot of bad that's come out of social media, a lot of things that I think has failed us as a culture with social media, but there are certain good things that come out of it. And if stuff starts going viral, well, guess what? This is one example. The people are speaking out, and it's becoming a major national story. Let's go to the Kansas City Star. Big news here. Manny Abarca at the center of this one. 3 female employees of the Jackson County government sent Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca a cease and desist letter, alleging that he created a hostile work environment and threatened to force them out of their jobs, and suggesting they will sue if he doesn't change his behavior. Okay, I'm not sitting here as a Manny Abarca supporter. He's been on the show a couple of times. I'm not really a fan. I don't think he's awful necessarily, but I'm really not a fan. That being said, he is somebody who is obviously at the center of what's going on in Jackson County. He wants Frank White out as Jackson County executive, which goes to show you a broken clock is right twice a day.
But this seems like a completely bogus lawsuit. This is coming from 3 people who likely know they will be fired once Frank White gets recalled coming up here in a couple of weeks. Do I think Manny's a buffoon? Yeah, I do, more or less. From the people I've talked to inside of Jackson County, is he only a buffoon to women? No. He's an equal opportunity buffoon. He's a buffoon to everybody, as far as I can tell from the people that I've spoken with. Is he harassing anybody? No, he's not. This is basically a frivolous lawsuit filed by 3 people who know that they are going to lose their jobs. That's what this is. And this letter alleges that Manny Abarca has been continually harassing these female leaders based on gender and age, and has made threats against their job security. It also accuses Manny Abarca of engaging in libel and slander against the employees, damaging their reputations in the workplace. Who is one of these employees? One of these employees is Gail McCann Beatty, the county assessor, who, if Frank White did anything to try to show that he cared one bit about the property tax fiasco in Jackson County, he would have fired Gail McCann Beatty 2 years ago. He never did it. The letter goes on to read here, Mr. Abarca has been heard to threaten that if Frank is voted out, then these 3 women, including Gail McCann Beatty, will be gone next. Mr. Abarca has referenced utilizing the pretext of the budgeting process for accomplishing such illegal terminations. That's what the letter claims. You know, what a mess in Jackson County. And the reality is, Manny Abarca does a lot of goofy things, and he's wrong on a lot of stuff. He happens to be right on this Frank White thing. Is he partially motivated by his own political future? I believe he is. But you know what? It doesn't really matter to me right now. We'll worry about that at a future time. Frank White has been, sadly and unfortunately, completely incompetent. He has let down the people of Jackson County. And he has some of these minions that continue to remain employed by Jackson County, despite the fact that they have no business doing their job. And it seems like 3 of these women are now claiming that Manny Abarca has basically been harassing them based on their gender and their age. When the reality is, Manny Abarca has been criticizing them because they're terrible at their jobs. So it was a lead story yesterday in the Kansas City Star, but on this one, I'll have Manny Abarca's back. Coming up, a Band-Aid in Kansas City. We'll explain next. Sometimes we can all come to the same place and same conclusion, even if we have different ways of getting there. 6:35, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. So we are, 10 months away from the World Cup coming to Kansas City? I'm not counting down. Soccer's not really my thing, but I know it's more or less next summer. And I know that Kansas City does not feel in any way prepared for it. I don't think it's for the reasons some people believe, but this story in the Kansas City Star yesterday, or in the last couple of days that I read on Tony's Kansas City, was headlined here, Kansas City is crumbling. A World Cup Band-Aid is not a solution. And I'm like, wow, that's a great story. It's a really important story. But, of course, the author is of the opinion that Kansas City needs to do a better job with big government, and that's why we're not ready for the World Cup. But the premise is a good one here. The premise is, and the author writes here, you cannot plaster over the blatant issues of a city and expect the world to be fooled by the fake exterior. A city should not try to improve for a one-time, short-term event in which outsiders will come and view it. A city should improve for the sake of the people who live there. That's outstanding. But you know and I know what's coming. Kansas City will put its best foot forward next summer for the World Cup. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I have my questions as to how it's going to go. But I promise you what's going to happen is they're going to clear out all the homeless encampments. They're going to make sure downtown is pristine. A lot of the problems that we've dealt with over the last, several years will, at least for a few weeks, fall by the wayside. Things will be very much buttoned up. And then once the World Cup leaves, it will be back to business as usual, which is sad. Which means basically we just put on a show for people from outside of Kansas City. It's like I see this sometimes around Kansas City, and unfortunately we have a couple of these in our neighborhood, where you have some of these renters, and not the renters themselves, but the landlords, who just, turn over to new renters. They slap a coat of paint over some of the issues inside the house, and they try to hoodwink and trick renters into coming in. And by the time they're in there, well, you know what? Suddenly they realize all the problems that they've got. And by then it's too little too late. It's unfortunate, but you see it happen all the time. That's what Kansas City is going to do next summer. We'll put a fresh coat of paint on some things. We'll make it look good for a few weeks. And then, unfortunately, we'll be back dealing with some of the very same issues that we dealt with, before the World Cup, and we'll continue to deal with after the World Cup, John.
Wow, the place looks nice when it's mowed and there's no potholes.
Exactly. That's what they'll do.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at this piece, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this author's on to something here. This is pretty good. The problem is she's looking at it from a very different perspective. Anna Woodward is her name. Wood, excuse me. No R in there. My apologies to Anna. She's at Elise Summit. And she writes here that we've got a housing crisis. We've got issues with redlining and highways that tore into once vibrant communities and business areas and all that historical stuff that always comes up when it comes to the history of Kansas City. She says here the city once boasted nearly 300 miles of streetcar tracks in line with Chicago and San Francisco. Unfortunately, she writes here, with the rise of the automobile, the city was cut apart and ravished for a highway system to aid suburbanites. So Kansas City is built on racism. I mean, we've heard the same thing over and over and over again over the years. I know.
Some of us went to history class in school, so we don't need to be regurgitated,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yep. So she goes on to make all those claims and obviously all those arguments that have been made for a very long time. And she's wrong about a lot of them, but she is right to note that when it comes to this issue and this event happening next year, Kansas City will just put its best foot forward and will try to put on that fresh coat of paint. And when we get all done with the World Cup, we'll be back to the same old nonsense.
It's an interesting perspective that we both can agree that there's an issue that needs to be addressed,
Absolutely.
And without getting into too many particulars of each other, we can still come to a conclusion that we can all live with, right? Without having to say, hey, who'd you vote for?
Exactly right. Spot on there, my man. So just, I thought that was notable and interesting as we start to count that World Cup down. And even people that disagree on some of the big picture political issues agree that Kansas City's going to put on a dog and pony show. And instead of doing the long-term things that are in the best issues and the best interests of the resident, instead we get some of this nonsense. Now, elsewhere, this happened last night. Missouri House moved forward on the new congressional map that, of course, divides Kansas City and makes the 5th congressional district, currently represented by Emanuel Cleaver, a much more competitive district and basically a Republican district. So the Republican-controlled House advanced the map along party line votes. Both need one more vote today before heading to the Missouri Senate. So they'll have to do one more vote today in the House, and then this thing will go to the Senate. It is a done deal, let's be clear. There is no drama around this. There are no questions as to whether or not the congressional map is going to change. It's going to happen. And you're going to see Emanuel Cleaver end up in a district that is much more Republican and now goes all the way out to mid-Missouri. It will include parts of northern and northeastern Jackson County, and it will spread all the way out. I mean, an hour and a half at least out into mid-Missouri is where it's going to go for Emanuel Cleaver. Mark Alford of the 4th Congressional District will take over basically the southern portion of Jackson County. And then Sam Graves up in the Northland will now get all of Clay County. So if you're in Clay County, you're very happy now. You had Emmanuel Cleaver for the last few years. Now you're going to go back to a world where you have Sam Graves. So this will happen. It doesn't matter what protests take place in Jeff City or Kansas City. It doesn't matter who's screaming about how it's unfair and how it's gerrymandered. It is gerrymandering. I've said that since day one. Anyone trying to tell you it's not is lying. It is a full-blown gerrymander. But it's a response to the gerrymandering that's been done in blue states. So this was pushed, of course, by the Trump administration. They realized that Missouri could squeeze out one more congressional seat for the Republican Party, and that's what they're doing to follow up on Texas. And Indiana, it sounds like, may ultimately be next. But this is happening. There is nothing about it that is going to hold this thing up, and it's full steam ahead. And people can write about how it's unfair, and they may not be wrong about that. There's a part of this that, does make me feel icky. That being said, it's not like Illinois is going back on its gerrymandered map and saying, hey, we should probably make our map a little more fair, our 14-3 map that's gerrymandered out the wazoo. Gavin Newsom's trying to double down and squeeze more Democrat seats out of his map, even though that's very difficult to do. He's already basically gerrymandered that place. And same thing for other states along the East Coast for the most part. So this is a prime example of what is good for the goose has to be good for the gander, and now Republicans are just playing that game in reverse, and it moves ahead in the Missouri House before heading over to the Senate later this week. Tonight, I will be out at Rockhurst. They are having an event they are calling Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Controversy. So guess who gets to bring the controversy tonight? That's what I basically have been asked to do. American Public Square is putting it on. I've been a part of one of their events, it was about 2.5 years ago or so. And they asked me to be a part of this. And at first I was like, do I really want to subject myself to this? And then I said, you know what? I've got to put my money where my mouth is. I say all the time, it's important for all of us to put ourselves into situations where we're in conversations with folks we disagree with. So not only will I be in a situation where I'm on a panel with 4 or 5 other people who all disagree with me, that's just what I'm expecting. I will also be in a room with who knows how many hundreds of people who probably overwhelmingly disagree with me. They are there to basically get their woke credentials confirmed and feel better about themselves. So I'm expecting that tonight, but if you want to come out, doors open at 5:30, John.
I appreciate your effort. You do that on a semi-weekly basis with Nick Haynes, but also Mark Halford, too, making a point to get around and try to talk to people, even if it takes an hour or two after the designated end time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
Halford does do that. Mm-hmm. And he's got his town halls all over the place. He's getting shouted down. Difference is, it's really not in my job description where I have to do it.
No, you're not representative of anybody other than yourself at the moment.
But I do feel an obligation to put my money where my mouth is and do something like this tonight. So, I have very low expectations. Usually, not from the people in charge, but just from how it's going to go for me in particular. But it's weird. Like, normally if I do something like this, it's an hour and a half conversation. I try to do a little prep. But I don't know how to prepare for this.
Yeah.
Because it's like DEI is just a scam. It's a grift. I don't know what more needs to be said. Obviously I can explain it more in depth than that, but the whole thing is a joke. And it's, frankly, everything that it tries to convince you it's not, right? You're picking winners and losers based on things like race and gender. And they claim you have to do that to basically level the playing field. No, that's ridiculous. And they always have it through this prism of white versus black. No, look at Harvard. Harvard was discriminatory against Asian Americans. Yes, the Asian Americans, the founders of this nation, the original race. No. Oh, no? Oh, yeah, no, that's right. That's all nonsense. It was protecting Asian Americans who were being discriminated against. at places like Harvard. So it's not even a like white versus black issue. It's just a right versus wrong. I mean, it's a white-black issue, but not in the way that they portray it, not in the way that they pitch it. So I don't really know what I can do to prep for this. I know what my thoughts and beliefs and feelings are on it, and I'll share them. And if they don't want to have me back, well, that's fine. No skin off my back. But, I'll go tonight and see how it plays out, John.
Well, to your point, you're going there and you're not going there looking for a gotcha moment where you've got some stat going, wait till I lay this bomb on them. You're not. That's kind of their game, and so they reflect onto you that aren't you going to do your research and get your talking points together? It's like, no, they're in my head. That's just the way I live.
And the talking points for it's not like crime data, right? Like crime data, you actually have data that you can share,
right?
That you can break down and say, here's what's actually happening with, say, crime in the urban core. Here's who's actually committing this crime. Like, that's data. DEI is just this abstract thing that academia and the left made up and made a lot of people wealthy because corporate America fell for it hook, line, and sinker. That's what it is. It's just, there's not a lot of substance or there to it, John.
There's nothing more annoying than an adult who learns something that they should have learned in school.
Yeah.
Just finding out it's that whole what's the overzealousness of the recently converted that you get. Did you know? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
In fact, that was 150 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my goodness. So we'll see you out there maybe if you're looking for something to do. I know John can't be there. He doesn't know what he's going to wear.
I got no bell.
I know. And then Mark's given the excuse of basketball practice?
Yeah, I've got basketball practice.
Gosh.
I'm not coaching. I just have to take, and I'll have the toddler with me as well.
Oh, yeah, I know. I can't get any support from my teammates here. I'm a man on an island tonight.
We're right behind you, Pete.
Yeah, I know.
I'd civility bell the others.
Yeah, exactly right. Man. Woo. I hope that's not there tonight.
I should bring my civility foghorn.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. That's going to be interesting. Can't wait to see how it plays out. In the meantime, all the focus and one of our tirades was on this story out of Charlotte that is now getting a national attention. And the story is this absolute tragedy of this young woman, 23-year-old immigrant from Ukraine, white woman, who gets stabbed to death by a 34-year-old career criminal black man. So naturally, when there's racial components involved, it brings up a heightened sense of attention, right? But what's the actual, speaking of data, like DEI has no data to it, has no backbone to it. Someone yesterday had the wherewithal and audacity, and I mean this as a compliment, to go out there and share some of the data behind this story that we all need to be fully aware of next.
I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Just a couple of news and notes as we start the 9 o'clock hour. No, tonight's events at Rockhurst will not be streamed anywhere. It will not be on YouTube. It will not air on KCMO. It's not our event. It is being put on by an organization called American Public Square, and it's at Rockhurst University. I realize I wasn't clarifying that. Not the high school. It's at the university tonight. Doors open at 5:30. We'll get started at 6 o'clock. They are calling it Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Controversy. So I will be there to bring you the controversy tonight. I guess that's what I've been asked to do. Not literally, but I'm sure that's how it's going to go. Also, quick note, Bill O'Reilly was on the show last hour. And I know there was a mix-up with Bill, and it threw off the entire start of the hour. And then we went to a brief commercial break. And if you were on the stream, I apologize. We had a technical issue. You did not hear the O'Reilly interview if you were on the stream last hour. Just without getting too far in the details and the weeds, the technical issue is what it is. It was on our end. It was not on your end. We apologize for that. And you can listen to it on the podcast after the show. So it happens. None of us are perfect. And We just got to power through. So we learned from it as a team in terms of what went wrong technically. But if you missed it on the stream, it will be up on the podcast after the show. So be sure to check it out there. That's what happens when you're doing live radio. It's all good, though. It's all good. All right, 9:06. We got an hour to go until Keachman Uncanceled coming up at 10 o'clock. Credit to Will Kane. You hear Will Kane at 9 p.m. weeknights here on KCMO Talk Radio. He does a radio show, podcast. He does, of course, his TV show now in the afternoons on Fox News. And yesterday, in the wake of this story out of Charlotte that is getting a lot of attention, Will Kane dove into some of the numbers that people are afraid to share with you. This after 23-year-old Ukrainian immigrant was stabbed by a 14-time arrested suspect on the light rail in Charlotte. And, I mean, this guy, you talk about a criminal history. My goodness, 34-year-old DeCarlos DeJuan Brown Jr. Just randomly gets up out of nowhere, and he stabs this young woman, and she dies. And this happened a couple of weeks back. It was on August 22nd, but the video, which I haven't watched the video, I've seen the screenshot of what happens before he stabs her. I can't watch these videos. I just can't do it, okay? So I have no interest in doing it. I'm not going to watch it. But Will Kane brought up something that is important and needs to be talked about. And it's uncomfortable for some people to talk about it. But here's what Will Kane had to say when you run some of the numbers.
The story is about race. Race. Take a look at the black-on-white crimes, 385,000 in 2023. The white-on-black crimes, just under 118,000. You see the comparative numerical difference. But now, here's what the media actually does. They did what our camera operator just began to do a moment ago. I'm going to step out of the way, and I'm going to show you literally what the media does with the camera. They zoom in on this number. This number, devoid of context. Now, why would...
Let me just run those numbers one more time by you. All right? White on black crime, 2023. Interracial violent crime incidents, 117,000. White on black crime incidents in 2023. Black on white crime, 385,000. That's over 3x. Black on white crime versus white on black crime. Now, this is not to sit here and say, if you're a white person and you happen to be walking around and you see black people, you should be afraid. That's not what I'm saying. Certainly, same thing in reverse. None of us should feel unsafe. Now, of course, if there are certain circumstances and you're around a bunch of people that, appear like they're ready to commit violence, that are, causing a nuisance and packing heat and whatever else it might be, okay? If that is something that you are aware of your surroundings with, then yes, you might want to find a way to get out of that situation. But the point of these numbers is not to suggest that you should be afraid or concerned that somebody that doesn't look like you is going to commit an act of violence. That's not the point of it here. The point of it is to note that the media sells you a complete bill of lies on these issues. One of the most obvious examples of white on black crime in the last 2 to 3 years is based right here in Kansas City. It's Andrew Lester. It's Ralph Yarl. The old man in his 80s who was at home alone when someone comes knocking on the door. It happens to be a young black boy named Ralph Yarl. He's at the wrong house looking for his friend. And Andrew Lester, we don't know what exactly happened, but Andrew Lester panicked. He pulled out his weapon. He shot through the door, and he hit Ralph Yarl. Ralph Yarl, thank goodness, amazingly did not die, but it became a worldwide story. Why? It fit a convenient narrative. Old white guy in Missouri, young black kid, boom. Many in the media will run with that one for as far and as long as they can. Because the narrative was, boy, a young black kid in parts of America, you got to watch out because you might show up at the wrong door and just get shot and nearly killed. That was the narrative they were trying to pursue. Despite the fact that the data in no way backs that up. But it worked. It worked. And then Will Cain goes out there yesterday and he goes, look at these numbers. What I'm sharing with you are just plain old facts. That's it. What you do with the information is up to you. I don't go around and say, well, there's someone who doesn't look like me. I'm not going to walk on the same side of the sidewalk as them. I don't live my life that way. And I don't think most people should or do live their lives that way. But if you want to have this conversation and you want to actually look at the numbers, those are the numbers. 2023, interracial violent crime incidents, 117,000 white on black, 385,000 black on white. And why is it that stories like this, like what we're seeing in Charlotte, never seem to get as much mainstream attention as some of the others, like, say, a Ralph Yarl? Why is that? You know the answer. So I'm somewhat asking this rhetorically, but you know the answer as well as I do. And where does this all go from here? Well, here's where this is going to go. And this is something that I say that I think is going to come in the months and years to come. It can't happen overnight, but they'll slow roll this idea. This idea that there will be a war on cameras in public places. There will be a war on body cameras on cops. I know all the things that they wanted 5 years ago that they got has backfired on them. One of the reasons that Ralph Yarl's story got so much worldwide play is that we don't really know what happened. There was no camera there. So you could more or less basically pick a side and kind of jump to your own conclusion. But there have been a lot of these George Floyd 2.0 incidents or Ralph Yarl type stories that if they didn't have body cameras on the cops, if they didn't have some of these surveillance cameras around, well, they would have tried to turn it into one of those situations. But thank goodness cops had body cameras on. Thank goodness there were surveillance cameras. The problem for the racial hucksters is that security footage, body cameras, have started to reveal an inconvenient truth. So now they will have no choice but to try to ban them. And it's coming. I mean, mark my words, it's coming. And there was a push for this several years ago. I found this story on CBS News from 2017. BART, which is the public transit outfit in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is July 9th of 2017. Headline: BART withholding surveillance videos of crime to avoid stereotypes. Come on. Really? Now, fast forward to 2020. The George Floyd situation happens. There's a massive push for body cameras. I thought that was a great thing. I would not be a cop somewhere right now where I can't get myself a body camera because of cell phones and things of that nature. I just wouldn't do it. But, we went to a world in 2020 where it was got to get body cameras, more surveillance footage. That's how we're going to protect people. Well, now the last few years, the body cameras aren't helping the cause. So it will take time. It will not be an obvious rollout. It will be a slow roll of trying to basically withhold surveillance footage, not promote body cameras, not promote cameras in, public spaces, which I've always been a fan of. I know there's been a push on the right for being against red light cameras and things like that. That's my personal privacy. No, you're out in public, okay? Trying to keep people safe. Follow the law. It's going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. And this is the reason I've always been a proponent to this. Sam's in Gladstone. Hey, Sam, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, Pete. I think that perspective is interesting, but I wonder if that's a little bit more of a millennial perspective. I think especially when I look at Gen Z, everything they're doing is so visually focused and so oriented around video that I wonder if our problem is going to be they're going to eliminate cameras I actually think what's going to happen is people are going to become so adept at manipulating AI content that what's going to happen is you're going to have 70 different videos of the same event, many of them doctored to remove things like somebody holding a knife conveniently at somebody's ribs in such a way that people are going to be able to pick and choose the video content they believe is true based on their narrative. And what we're going to see is this enormous boom in doctored media, which that's not new. I mean, think about it. They've been doing that for the last 25 years, editing images to make smoke clouds look bigger, editing Joe Rogan's face to make him look sicker. Yeah, I think we're actually entering an age where people are going to be so confused about what's real that truth is going to be fundamentally assaulted, and actually video is going to be used to further that assault.
I don't deny that for a second. It's a great call, Sam. I think you're right about that. You already see it. I mean, the amount of dumb things I see people share on Facebook that's clearly and obviously not true, it's crazy.
Did you see Philly Karen punching cops?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the baseball woman wrestling away from police on one thing, and I'm like, oh, give me a break.
There is a lot of, and people share it because they're just gullible, I guess. So, yeah, I think that Sam's onto something there, but that's where you're going to have the police departments, the law enforcement folks say, here's the real video. It's only coming from us. Now, are people going to alter it and edit things? I mean, yeah, he mentions people were altering Joe Rogan's looks on camera, and that was happening, implying that he was sick because he was taking, what was that drug that apparently was just going to kill you during COVID? I forget what it was.
Ivermectin.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for that, Mark. So that stuff's been happening. It will continue to happen. And yes, maybe it is to the millennial in me where I don't get bothered by red light cameras and security cameras. It just doesn't bother me. Do you know how much information, if you have a smartphone, the rest of the world has on you? Come on. We gave that up a long time ago. Don't have a smartphone and tell me, I'm against red light cameras to protect my private information. Stop. You got a smartphone, please. Okay? Apple has got the whole world on you. They know everything you're doing at every given point in time. They know exactly where you are right now. Stop with I'm gonna stick it to the man and be against red light cameras. So some of that we got to pump the brakes on. And overall, I mean, you talk about some of the big stories in this country. Some of the big stories we've avoided because we've had body cameras and we've had security footage and we've gotten the facts because of what we've been able to see on video. We potentially prevented multiple George Floyd situations because of cameras, because we got the facts. And that's what I'm going for. The truth and the facts.